Hey you, welcome back. So today we're going to be watching a BTS storyline summary and explained, a 2020 update by xCeleste. So you guys have been waiting for this ever since I started the storyline, to the point that I've been getting suggestions for this video on the first storyline video that I ever watched. Ever since then, everybody was like, not everybody, but a lot of people were like, you need to watch this, I recommend you watch this. I'm like, yes, okay, I'm going to watch it, but I need to watch the storyline videos first. So that's what I did. I've completed watching the storyline videos. I know that there is also like a kind of BTS universe game kind of thing, and I have had a look at the webtoon, but I've only had a look at the first 2 chapters because I'm kind of hard pressed for time at the moment and I'm going to read it, but also I wasn't really sure if I should read the webtoon first or watch the summary explained first, because somebody said that if I read the webtoon first it would take too much away from the reaction for the storyline explained, because there's already a lot explained in the webtoon. So I don't know, I'm just going to go for it now. You've listened to my reactions, you've heard my theories. I'm guessing that basically, to put it short, something happened that kind of broke the whole group apart. Jin made a mistake. He wants to fix his mistake. We don't really know what that mistake was. He ratted some of them out maybe. The group broke apart and everybody kind of fell apart because they were what gave each other stability and happiness in their lives, because they all have like their personal problems which are quite severe, connected to personal trauma or some sort of disordered behavior, and they kind of all fall into misery or death. That's the story, and Jin is kind of the key character who's trying to save people, right? He's trying to change things, and we're talking about like time travel. I'm still not sure if it's time travel or a time loop, if it's just one day that keeps repeating itself, but I don't think so. I think it is, if it's a time loop, it's more than one day. It's like a broader time span. And if it's not a time loop, then it means he's traveling back in time to kind of find the source that he needs to change in order for them to all be healthy and happy and not to meet disaster, I guess. So yeah, that's my theory in a nutshell. Let's just see what xCeleste has to say about it.
Welcome back to my channel and to an updated BTS storyline summary. Reminder that this is a fictional storyline created by Big Hit.
Good
this
reminder,
video contains information
because
from
some people
BTS's
might
music
actually
videos,
think
films, highlight reels, concert VCRs,
that she's talking about
Save
them.
Me webtoon, BTS Universe Story Game, Notes album, and the Notes 1 and 2 books. Yeah, puzzle pieces everywhere. This is an updated version from my last BTS storyline summary back in 2019, but since then we've gotten a lot more information, so that's why I'm making this updated version. Enjoy! We'll begin with the boys meeting in high school, March 2, year 19. The boys were late for school and were sent to clean the storage classroom as punishment. Through this event, they became close friends and made the storage classroom their secret hideout. They shared a lot of happy moments together, filled with laughter and joy. June 12, year 19. They decided to ditch school to find a rock by the sea that would grant wishes, but when they got there, the rock was no longer there. It was under construction for a seawall, but they still shouted out their dreams over the loud sounds of the drill. This was when they took their first Polaroid picture. As time went on,
the Polaroids
hardships in life began to tear them apart. Around May, year 20, Namjoon moved to the countryside with his brother, mother, and ill father. He was about to write a letter to the boys, but instead, he fogged up the window in their hideout and wrote, "We must survive." Namjoon left without saying anything to the boys. Namjoon...
This is already so good, because I love that it's like so coherent, you know? It's like timeline. What happens first, because we just got these puzzle pieces, flashes, and jumping between times. So like when did what happen again? So this is so like already so coherent.
In poverty, His family has been struggling to pay for the father's hospital bills. He would work 2 to 3 part-time jobs in order to pay for the bill and to make a living. The
Right,
boys
we
looked
knew
up to
that
Namjoon because
Namjoon
of how
had
responsible he
poor
was, but he
background.
felt pressured. They'd say how they wanted to be an adult like him, but little did they know how he felt.
Oh.
Taehyung looked up to Namjoon a lot. When he was young, his mother left him and his older sister behind. Both him and his sister grew up getting abused by their alcoholic father. Since Taehyung doesn't open up about his feelings and hardships, the boys don't really know what he's going through. June
So they're
11,
all
year
not
20.
opening up to each other.
Seokjin was forced by the principal to reveal their hideout. The principal
Right.
threatened to tell Seokjin's father about how he was a bad student. The dean walked into the hideout while Jungkook and Yoongi were playing the piano. He came up and slapped Jungkook. Yoongi became defensive and ended up pushing the dean. Because of this, Yoongi got expelled from school. And Jungkook...
Right, I read that in the notes. So that's maybe where it all started, because Jin told on them. But told on them doing what? They had a hideout where they played the piano? What's the big deal? Like, is that really like a crime?
blamed himself for what happened. Seokjin lived in a wealthy family. When his mother passed away, his father sent him to the US to live with his grandmothers. His father was an assemblyman who was always strict and cold towards him. Seokjin just wanted to make his family proud of him.
And be a good
September
boy, be a good
15,
student.
Year 20. Hoseok and Jimin were at the bus stop when Jimin ended up having a seizure. He was brought to the hospital, and Hoseok tried to stay by his side, but Jimin's mother turned him away.
Yes, I read that.
When Hoseok was about 6 to 7 years old, his mother brought him to a carnival and gave him a chocolate bar. She told him to close his eyes, then count to 10. When he opened his eyes, she was gone. She abandoned him, and he ended up living in an orphanage for 10 years. Through this event, Hoseok developed narcolepsy, or at least that's what he says. I have a theory.
Right, I didn't know that he was in an orphanage, but obviously I thought maybe he still had a father, but his mother left him and that's why he ended up in an orphanage. All right. I don't think it's narcolepsy, because in the like she also says in the Wings short films, it says something on the sheet that the doctor has when he like assesses J-Hope, and it's something like, I can't remember the medical term, but I think it's kind of pretending to be sick so that for attention, I guess. It's like a medical condition.
Munchausen syndrome, which we see during his film
syndrome, yeah.
for Mama. It's a mental disorder in which a person repeatedly and deliberately acts as if he or she has a physical or mental illness when he or she is not really sick. In the Notes 1 book, for May 16, year 22, Hoseok admitted to Jimin that his narcolepsy was actually fake.
I haven't read the
September
books, so this is new information for me.
Jimin is still in the hospital and has been there for 2 years now.
2
Today
years?
is a special day for him. He lied for the first time and told the doctors that he didn't remember a thing. When Jimin was about 8 years old, an incident at the flowering arboretum scarred him for life.
Right, I want to know what that
He
incident
began to walk
was.
home alone since his parents didn't show up to pick him up. It began to rain. So he ran into a storage building of the flowering arboretum. That's where he saw a little kid laying on the ground tied up in a room. He had bruises on his arms and legs and scars on his wrist from being tied up for too long. He witnessed the kid trying to fight back by using a box cutter, but a man unarmed the boy and slammed the door shut. Jimin heard the boy's screams turn into wailing and gradually subsided. Jimin was able to escape without being caught, but ever since this incident, he began to have seizures, and his parents would keep bringing him to the hospital. He transferred...
What? I was so curious to know what kind of incident Jimin had witnessed at that I can't pronounce that. But that's not what I would have expected. What the hell was going on there? Someone kidnapped a child and tortured them? That's heavy stuff, man.
5 different schools because of this. We find out that the kid's last name is Choi, and he was about 5 years old at that time. The little boy was discovered near Hwayong Mountain on April 10, and he suffered from temporary amnesia. The police were looking for clues to conduct an investigation of the case, but it seemed like nothing was solved. This little kid is
he's
most
alive.
likely the boy Seokjin tried to save on October 10, year 9. Men were trying to kidnap this kid for ransom because the father's company went bankrupt, but Seokjin helped him escape. He tried to hide this kid in his house, but Seokjin's father let the men into the house to take the kid away.
What?
Now here's the thing, Seokjin's event happened in year 9, and Jimin's event happened in year 11. So I'm not sure if that kid was really kept for that long or what happened in between, but just make note of that. September 30, year 20.
Man, this is mind-blowing. What? Seokjin's father let them take the boy, and he was kept for another 2 years before Jimin stumbled upon him. But the newspaper just said he was found when he was 5 years old, right? With memory loss. So when was he kidnapped? As a baby? As a 2-year-old? As a 3-year-old?
Jungkook would go to their secret hideout every day in hopes of one day seeing them all gathered together again.
This is the
In
game,
the end,
right?
They didn't. It was just Hoseok and Jungkook. Jungkook relied on the boys a lot. His father left when he was 7, so he lived with his mother, stepfather, and stepbrother. He'd get abused by his stepbrother while his stepfather and mother watched and did nothing. So
this is such heavy shit. Why is everyone like literally suffering so much? That's crazy. They are all like abusive. The parents are all abusive, controlling, or absent.
Only were the boys, who were now falling apart. He was very close to Yoongi, and he'd always be listening to Yoongi play the piano at their secret hideout. Yoongi has always loved making music, but when he was 15 years old, his house caught on fire with his mother still inside.
I knew that
She
one.
passed away, and she was the reason why Yoongi started playing the piano. Him and his father don't have a good relationship, and it seemed as if his father didn't want him to continue making music. Theory: Yoongi's mom was the one who started the fire to commit suicide. She supposedly went insane and was also a pianist. Now the story goes on. Namjoon left for the countryside without telling anyone, but comes back after over a year and lives in a container. Seokjin transferred to a school in Los Angeles without a word.
Los Angeles, yes,
were
they all
always
split
unknown.
apart.
Yoongi never showed up after being expelled from school. Jimin
Oh
never
man,
came
this
back
is
to
so
school after going
tragic.
to the hospital. Hoseok was now working a part-time job at a burger joint called 2-Star Burger, and he would sometimes see Jungkook in his school uniform. April 11th.
Just imagine that, being like so, having been such close friends, and then you're like so distant suddenly that must be awkward. I mean, it's a fictional story, I know that, but just like, wow.
Year 22. Seokjin finally came back to Korea after 2 years and 10 months. He drove to a gas station and spotted Namjoon working there.
Right, and he finds out
decided
everyone's
not to
kind
say
of like...
hi and ended up driving away.
Oh, okay.
May 22, year 22. Seokjin begins to wonder what the other boys were doing now. He decides to go back to the gas station to visit Namjoon, but when he gets there, he finds out Namjoon ended
He's in
up
prison.
going to jail.
Yes.
He got his phone number and went to visit him. Namjoon revealed that he got into jail after getting into a fight with a customer. Hoseok was in the hospital after a bad accident. They didn't know where Taehyung and Jimin were, and that both Jungkook and Yoongi were dead.
Whoa,
When Seokjin was
yes.
heading out of the police office,
That's
he saw
mental.
Taehyung outside of the entrance. He was tied up and convicted of murder. Seokjin went back to the beach they visited back in high school and asked himself, where did it all go wrong? Then a voice spoke to him.
Right.
If you could turn back time, do you
Right.
believe you can straighten out the errors and mistakes and save everyone?
This is what I read in the note.
He woke up and it was April 11 again. He thought it was all a dream and continued his day like nothing happened. He went to the gas station and saw Namjoon, then again decided not to say hi. He began to drive through an alley when a body landed on the hood of his car.
That's
He realized it
Jungkook
was
jumping.
His heart began
from-
to beat fast and everything shattered like a mirror. It was April 11 again. So he kept thinking everything was a dream, and so the same things would happen again. He went to the gas station and didn't say hi to Namjoon, and this time he's walking down the alley, and then Jungkook's body dropped behind him. Everything shattered, and a voice spoke to him once again. You won't make it out here alone in this entangled destiny. Here's how you
Whoa.
remember the loop. And as the voice spoke to him, he began to see fragments of the previous timelines. Then another voice spoke. If you could turn back time, do you believe you could straighten out the errors and mistakes and save everyone? That's when Seokjin finally realized that he's been going back in time.
But he's been going back in time just for April 11th.
Okay, now things get super complicated during this journey.
Now
Let's
things
find
get
out
complicated.
how each of the boys get in trouble and how they die, but every time he travels back in time, things would change. Because of the butterfly effect, location and time would sometimes change. Reminder that butterfly effect is a part of the chaos theory that states that one small change in a situation can drastically change the outcome of an event.
Right, and that's why people always say, for example, when there's like time travel in books or films involved, it's like you can travel back in time, but don't change anything because if you change something, it's like a snowball effect that keeps on rolling. It's like the butterfly effect. If you change one tiny part, everything else kind of changes around it because everything is so tightly inwoven with each other that it's like you can't just change one thing. Changing one thing changes everything, right?
At this point, we don't know how many times Seokjin had traveled back in time, but he began to realize that he has to learn more about the boys and their struggles in order to help them. He also realizes that he needs the boys to help him, but he does this indirectly. If you want all of the details, I do recommend you starting with the Save Me webtoon and then continue by playing the BTS Universe story game. I did create a summary for the game if you'd like to check that out. Link is in my description box. But I'll be going over each character's tragedies, which is shown during their Save Me webtoon, their reason, which is found in the BTS Universe story game, and the solution, which is found during the Notes 1 and 2 book.
Whoa! You have like the backstory, the reason and the solution. The problem, the reason and the solution is in different places. You have literally got to piece everything together. She was like, she must have made like a huge Excel spreadsheet or like various like, you know, these things where you're doing like during like a police search, you kind of like map out the wall with kind of timelines and like strings attached and stuff.
On April 11, year 22, Namjoon gets into a fight with a customer at the gas station. The
Yes.
customer would get his gas filled, then drop the cash on the ground for Namjoon to pick up. This would cause a fight, and Namjoon would end up in jail.
Because
Reason.
the guy was rich.
Money has always been a constant source of frustration and misery for Namjoon. He has been working 2 to 3 part-time jobs to pay for his ill father's hospital bills. Because of this, he lived in a container and would sometimes sleep at the gas station's break
Man,
room.
that's so rough.
He had to put his love for books aside and hold off on purchases because of his budget. That's why he couldn't stomach kneeling down to pick up the money and being insulted over it.
Yeah.
Solution. Seokjin lets the whole scene with the rude customer play out, but as soon as the customer drops some money for Namjoon to pick up, Seokjin comes in and grabs it, then hands it to the customer. This saved Namjoon from getting into a fight and going to jail. Later that night, April
Right.
11, year 22, Jungkook would purposely get into fights with thugs on the street, then make his way to the top of a construction building to jump off.
So he's
Reason,
suicidal.
the boys were his family, and he was no longer in contact with them. He felt like his family didn't care about him and that no one
Oh.
cared about him. Solution. After Seokjin saved Namjoon at the gas station, Namjoon invited him to meet up with Taehyung and Hosuk after work. Seokjin asked about the others, and Namjoon said he didn't really talk to the others anymore, but he does think Hosuk still talked to Yoongi. Seokjin would encourage Namjoon to call Hosuk, and this would cause a domino effect. Namjoon would call Hosuk asking him to invite Yoongi, then Yoongi calls Jungkook before he decides to jump off the construction building.
Ah.
May 2, year...
Man, that's calculated though. Like Jin literally had no clue if that would work out, right? Namjoon could have called Hosuk, and Hosuk couldn't have called Yoongi. Yoongi couldn't have picked up. It could have been too late. Like a lot of like coincidences or like.
T2. Yoongi burns himself in either a motel or his workroom. He
Which
also
is so
tried on
tragic
April
considering
29
the mother's
and May 10
backstory.
during different timelines because of the butterfly effect.
Ah, I
Reason.
see, I
Yoongi
see.
believed that bad things would happen to people he cared about. This caused him to distance himself from the boys, especially Jungkook.
Oh,
Solution.
man.
Seokjin realized the last time Yoongi genuinely smiled was when all 7 of the boys were together. He also realized that both Yoongi and Jungkook had the same tinge of desperation in their eyes. Jungkook was the key to saving Yoongi. So this time, instead of Seokjin doing it himself, he had Jungkook visit Yoongi at his workroom. This would cause Yoongi to run away and go into the motel. Jungkook would then try to run after him and follow him. Seokjin left a clue in front of the motel Yoongi was in so Jungkook could find him. And that's how Jungkook ends up saving.
That's mental. So he's literally kind of trying to piece everything together in a way that's like the good thing, the interesting thing here is that Seokjin realizes that he's the one who can travel back in time. He's the one who needs to change things, but he can't change things by himself. So everything is back tied together with the 7 of them being this entity, being this unity, being the family. So he's trying to make them work together to save everyone. It's not about one person, it's about unifying your power, basically, to save everyone with conjoined effort.
From the fire. May 12, year 22. Jimin drowns himself in the bathtub at the hospital. If he didn't take his life while he was in the surgical ward, he would make the same choice days after he returned to the closed ward.
Right, and that's because of the butterfly effect again, right? So it's like, if you have that like decision within yourself, you're going to do it no matter what changes. So you have to change the determination within yourself. You have to find the problem and find the reason, find the solution so that something changes within themselves and not just the outer circumstances.
Jimin believes that he belongs in the hospital. This was his way of running away from the past incident he witnessed at the Flower Laboratorium. He didn't want to make things any more difficult for his mother than they already were. So that's why he took his life.
But what about the lie? I wonder what about the lie? You know, there was a lot of significance on today I lied for the first time. Okay, but what significance does that hold?
Had tried to convince Jimin to leave and also had Taehyung try, but it didn't work. Hosuk is supposed to be the one who could convince Jimin to leave the hospital.
Ah, and there we have the couples, the pairings, right?
Hosuk falls and hits his
only
head
they
while walking
can save
on a
each
bridge.
other.
he ended up in the hospital for a checkup. May 12, year 22. Hosuk accidentally falls down the stairs at the hospital and breaks his ankle. Reason: Hosuk gets a call from the children's home, which is his orphanage, in regards to Kim Jung-hee, the staff who was like a mother to him. She has colon cancer, and because it was in its late stage, surgery had a low chance of success. After finding out this news on May 10, he would collapse on the bridge. As for the accident at the hospital, Hosuk would notice a woman with a long skirt, hat pressed low, with a child. He thought it was his mother, so he followed her down the stairs and ended up falling. Solution: Seokjin figured out that Jimin was the solution to saving Hosuk. Hosuk actually ended up in the same hospital Jimin was at. And while Jimin was waiting for an elevator at the hospital, Seokjin called out his name and led him over to the staircase. Jimin
yes,
saw
we
Hosuk
saw
running
that
down
in
the
that
stairs
clip.
and was able to catch him before he fell. After Hosuk was released from the hospital, he came back with the others. They all worked together to help Jimin and encouraged him to leave the hospital. 20, year 22. Taehyung would come home to his alcoholic father abusing his older sister. This caused him to grab a bottle, break it open, then stab his father to death. This led up to him going to jail.
Yeah,
if he didn't end up in jail,
naturally.
He ended up jumping off the viewing platform by the ocean in front of the boys in a different timeline.
So, I see. So they are different. There are different timelines. So they're like different alternate realities. But in whichever reality stuff happens, it still ends bad. Either way, either prison or jumps off means basically killing himself, right? So that's why you need to fix the problem, fix the inside. Otherwise, it'll happen in each timeline, right?
Taehyung and his sister have been dealing with their alcoholic father for years, and Taehyung was fed up with the violence. As for him jumping off the platform, this happened during a timeline when they stopped him from murdering his father. He was frightened that he would become just like his father because of the recent incident. Solution: Seokjin had personally tried to stop Taehyung but ended up accidentally getting stabbed. So this time around, he had Hosuk give it a try. Hosuk was able to catch Taehyung just in time and stopped him from stabbing his father. As for Taehyung jumping off the platform, Seokjin went up the platform instead. So
okay. I kind of get it, but I don't think that is actually with everyone else I get it, but with Taehyung I think that's not a solution, because she just said that he jumped off the tower because he was afraid of what he was going to become, that he can't control his anger, that he might end up stabbing his father. And even though Hosuk prevented him from doing so, surely that fear is still there, because the situation isn't solved. The father is still abusive, right? So there's still anger issues. He's still with his father. He still lives there. He sees his sister getting abused. So the inside is not fixed at all, actually, in my opinion.
Here we are, May 22, year 22. Seokjin finally saved everyone. They were all gathered at the beach together once again. After the sunset, they went back to the place they were staying at and started dancing, laughing, and having fun. Seokjin thought this was a good time to finally confess to the boys. Taehyung thought he was going to tell everyone about what was really going on. A couple days before their beach trip, Taehyung asked Seokjin about the dreams he had been having. He has been having dreams of the past timelines. Seokjin said he didn't know anything, but Taehyung knew he was lying. So when Seokjin started confessing, and it was actually about the time he snitched on them during high school and how Yoongi got expelled, that made Taehyung angry because he thought Seokjin was just being a coward and not admitting to the dreams and stuff. Taehyung then shouts out, What's so great about being together? Who are we to one another? We're all alone in the end. That's when Seokjin punched Taehyung and they broke out in a fight because, you know, his repeated attempts, his countless tries to save his friends, he repeated so many moments of suffering for them. So, you know, he's asking, why
He
are
snapped.
you doing this to me? After that event,
And see, that's what I mean, because the anger that V has inside himself is not fixed.
they all went their separate ways and didn't contact each other much. Seokjin must have gone back again, but in another timeline, Seokjin leaves before all of this happens. Later that night, Jungkook got hit by a car. But not just any car. Jungkook believes it was Seokjin who hit him, but the odd thing is, Seokjin doesn't remember doing that at all. And we'll get to that in a little bit.
What? This is getting freaking crazy. I'm just like, I'm kind of, up until this point I was like, yes, all right, I get it. Good explanation, I understand. Now I'm like, what is happening? Didn't he just save everyone? He saved everyone and now it just kind of like keeps getting worse again?
This is when the highlight reels come in. So after they've gone their separate ways and they didn't really contact each other much, we're gonna touch base on each character. Hoseok was the first person who heard about Jungkook's accident. He was working at the burger joint when Jungkook's classmates came in and talked about the car accident. Hoseok and Jimin came to visit him after he was unconscious for 10 days. They were upset that Jungkook didn't contact them immediately. Jungkook ends up meeting a girl at the hospital who helped him stay positive during his recovery. Yoongi was making music again with the help of a girl who played the guitar. She was...
So wait. Jin saved everyone. They all got together again. He confessed what he did in high school and Tae got angry because he thought Jin is hiding something. Then they had that big fight and they split apart again after everything. After everything. And now they're not speaking to each other again.
Giving him free solo performances at schools and hospitals. Ever since he got addicted to his work again, he would lose sense of time. He didn't answer calls or checked his messages. He finally charged his phone, then it rang. It was a phone call from Jimin, telling him about Jungkook's car accident that happened the night they came back from the beach.
Alright.
Yoongi made it to the hospital but couldn't bring himself to go in. He felt like it was his fault that Jungkook got hurt.
But
Jungkook
why?
went outside with the girl he met at the hospital. They were sitting on a bench while he began to sketch. Then he heard a familiar song. It was a song Yoongi would play during high school. He looked over and it was the girl with the guitar.
Right.
He got closer and noticed the lighter hanging on her guitar with the initials
Which has his
YK.
initials.
It was Yoongi's initials. Taehyung is now all alone, but then he catches...
I like that there's still like that thread of, you know, it's almost like not soul mates, but souls being connected. The pairings, you know, it's still Jungkook and Yoongi, for example. Jungkook saved Yoongi out from the fire, and now they're still kind of like connected by that intense fate, I guess, fate.
Girls stealing at a convenience store. They run into each other a couple more times and ended up basically becoming friends. They spent about a month together until one day, they were spraying graffiti at the bus stop Namjoon usually stops at. The cops began to chase them until they were cornered. Taehyung ended up surrendering, but after being released from jail, the girl was nowhere to be found. Jimin
Okay.
ends up going back home after they returned from the beach. After he ran away from the hospital,
So he's not in hospital.
he has been living with Hoseok, but now it's time to go back home. His mother forced him to join an academy, and he was finally able to join Hoseok's dance class called Just Dance. During dance practice, Jimin and Hoseok's friend collided. Instead of him reacting to the girl getting hurt, he ends up running into the bathroom to wash the blood off his arm in a panic.
I guess it's kind of connected with him having that experience when he was young. Like, it's kind of like an instinct panicked reaction because he saw all that like blood and that boy being tied up and stuff. I don't know if it's like maybe like a compulsory kind of thing.
This reminded him of what he did at the Flower Moratorium, where
Right.
he would run away.
Run away.
As soon as he realized what happened, he ran after Hosok and the girl with an umbrella to help out, but stopped and turned back. Hosok carried the girl in the rain to the hospital. In the process, he hurts his ankle. They made it, and the doctor
The ankle again.
had a mild concussion. Hosok discovers a plane ticket to the US in her backpack. He
Yes, I
realized
read that.
she passed the
She's going to
overseas
go.
dance team audition. She became conscious and was ready to go home. When they got to the entrance, she was about to tell him about her going to the US, but instead, Hosok avoided it and made an excuse to get an umbrella. He just didn't want to hear about
Well, he has that trauma of being left, right? So he doesn't want to confront that.
leaving. Namjoon becomes interested in a girl he's been seeing every day for about a month. They would take the same bus to study in the same library before he'd go to work at night. He never spoke a word to her, though, but began to wonder what she does and what kind of things she's enduring. It's probably because she reminded him of himself. He finally got the courage to buy her a hair tie, but ended up leaving it on her backpack when she was asleep.
Because she had like a rubber hair tie,
Eventually,
right?
each
She
of the boys
didn't.
began
That's
to
why he thought that she was maybe as poor, with a poor background as he.
Cover themselves and realize they want to become a better person. Taehyung no longer wanted to be the same and wanted to protect his sister and his father, his family. Hosok decided to leave
Protect
town
his
and
father?
was gone for a while to heal his injured foot since he couldn't dance. During that time, he helped out a performance group and even toured with them for a little. They asked him to officially join their group, but he realized he needed to go back home. He didn't want to run away anymore. He comes back to finally congratulate his friend for going overseas.
But she's already gone,
Yoongi
right?
lost the guitar girl.
Oh no,
But
she was still there,
even though
okay.
he gave up on his music countless of times, he'd always start music again. And he didn't want to run away from it anymore. Jimin continued to dance and would practice by himself every night. He wanted to commit to something and prove that he was good at it. Namjoon thought back to his high school years. Everything he had given up on, he wanted to start again. Jungkook was the only one who seemed to be off, especially after the car accident. He was trying to figure out what happened that night.
So that's interesting because it's like everyone is kind of working their way through their issues by themselves this time. They find the energy, they find the resolution within themselves and not from each other, which is interesting because I guess it's also like a kind of process of growing up.
Now, all of the boys planned on meeting up for the yearly fireworks on August 30, year 22. It was actually Hosok's idea to get everyone together, and after he returned from taking a break, their group chat started buzzing again. Now there's Seokjin. In July, Seokjin saw a girl drop her diary while crossing the railroad tracks. In that diary was her wish list of things to do. He ends up meeting up with
curious
her and
about
doing
this one.
everything she's been wanting, but he never told her that he had her diary. One of the things on her wish list was Smeraldo flowers. Seokjin was able to find a shop who could order those, but they wouldn't be able to get a hold of it until August 30. Seokjin was thinking of confessing his love for her with the flowers while the fireworks bursted in the sky. But that didn't happen. Seokjin
No, it didn't.
was able to receive the bouquet of Smeraldo flowers from the delivery truck. He discovered there was no card in the bouquet and immediately called the owner. I'll make a U-turn now. The light just changed. Before
No! Oh, come on. Are you freaking kidding me? Is it the owner of the van that's going to hit her? That's too much.
finished his sentence, the girl came into view and began to walk towards him across the road. Then, bam! She got hit by the truck. He travels back to save her, which he thought was pretty easy to solve, but would encounter another tragic event with Namjoon on September 30, year 22. Namjoon would end up passing away during a fire inside his container home.
What?
Seokjin couldn't figure out how to save him. Each time the loop began, the relationship between him and the girl deteriorated. They always did what her diary said, but each loop she grew more distant. She asked him for a breakup because Seokjin was becoming strange and that she didn't know him anymore. He then stopped getting involved with the girl. He ends up giving back her diary and apologizing. The diary acted as a starting and stopping point for them. He tried to become someone else by following everything that diary had, but realized that only being true to himself, he can continue to move forward. From this point on, I'm gonna be...
So he actually ends up saving her, but in the process, it's like, the more he goes back, because there's that event with Namjoon, he has to go back again and again to figure out how to save him, but at each time he goes back, the relationship with the girl changes. That's so interesting. So, okay.
Honest, you guys, it gets confusing even for me.
Okay, let's get it.
Happened, but for this video, I'll try to make it easier to understand and
Please.
simplify the timeline. Now, the fire at Namjoon's place was caused by goons who came to kick everyone out from the container neighborhood. There was a redevelopment plan established, and it would demolish the container neighborhood along with Hosok's orphanage. Seokjin's father was actually part of this plan, along with his father's right.
Of course he was.
Junho. No matter
Come
what
on.
Did, he couldn't get past September 30, so he made a deal with the cat. He asked the cat how to save Namjoon, and the cat said, "Find the map of the soul. Then you'll be able to end all of this. Instead, there will be a price."
Oh, there's a price to pay.
Later that the price was him losing his memories. And whenever he would try to remember, or if he was in a familiar place, he would get major headaches. Because of this, he was beginning to forget why he was doing all of this in the first place and was losing himself.
Oh,
so now he's on a search for the map of the soul.
What?
At first, he thought it was in the form of a book and started looking through libraries and bookstores. At one point, he asked Namjoon about it. And of course, Namjoon didn't know. Jimin also overheard Seokjin asking a doctor at the hospital about the map of the soul. Seokjin was actually there to get checkups for his major headaches. But of course, they couldn't figure out why he was getting those headaches.
So he's already forgetting things in the process of looking for the map of the soul.
Jimin texted the group asking, "Do you know what the map of the soul is?" Namjoon mentioned that Seokjin also asked him the same thing a couple days ago. So now the rest of the boys decided to try and figure out what is going on with Seokjin. But
so they
left
reciprocate.
Jungkook out of this group chat since he was still sick and he was in the hospital, and they just wanted him to get better.
Oh man, that's the worst thing that you could do though, because his problem or his fear is that he's being left out and they don't care about him.
At the same time, Taehyung had also been trying to put the pieces together from his dreams. Remember that he's been having dreams of past timelines, and at this point,
this gets so
I
complicated.
feel like he knows what's really going on. So he realized that Seokjin needed their help but wasn't asking for it. Now the boys begin their search for this map of the soul. July 10, year 22. Taehyung told Namjoon about his dreams and that they were somehow linked to reality. One of the dreams was the fire incident at Namjoon's container. It then switched to Seokjin in the middle of a meeting room inside a tall building looking out the window. From his view, across the stream were apartment buildings in Myeonhyun City. He saw a billboard for canned coffee on a building rooftop, and behind it was a commercial building with a four-leaf clover logo displayed on the second floor. Seokjin phoned someone and said a word or two, then hung up. A moment later, lights turned off in every building. Seokjin smiled. Now,
So Taehyung is seeing the future, or is it actually not the future, it's the present but in a different timeline?
Taehyung and Namjoon go searching for this location for days. During this time, there had been a typhoon as well. After so many days, they realized they couldn't find it because the billboard had not changed yet. So on July 18, the energy drink was replaced with the canned coffee billboard. They found
So
the
it's-
office
it is
of
the future.
National Assemblyman Kim Chang-jun. It was Seokjin's father. They snuck into the conference room and Taehyung snatched the Songju City redevelopment plan off a printer. They were able to make it out but got caught and were brought to the police station. Namjoon tried dumping the papers at the police station but later found out reporters had gotten a hold of the documents. It was then revealed on the news and the documents caused panic amongst Hosok's orphanage and revealed police overlooking the would-be violence during this redevelopment.
Right, so
July
that's a good
22,
thing, right?
Year 22. Jimin remembered a man locked up in the ward at the hospital named Woo Hyun-sung. The man kept saying the map of the soul was wrecked. Yoongi and Jimin went to the hospital to see this.
Gee, where is this going? This is literally insane. I was with her for about 25 minutes of the video and then it was just like it's all new stuff to me.
When the man was asked about the map of the soul, his eyes shone with rage and he screamed convulsively. Because of him, my soul was wrecked.
Him?
The man he was pointing to was Kim Chang-jun on TV, which was Seokjin's father.
No.
They were thinking there was no way Seokjin's father was somehow involved, but Jimin said the man mentioned something like Giho and that Giho was missing. Jimin mentioned that he heard Woo Hyun-sung was admitted when he was in high school. As Jimin and Yoongi were heading out from the hospital, Jimin's phone went off and it was Jungkook calling. Yoongi shook his head. We keep this between us, away from Jungkook.
No, don't
He
do
has to focus
it.
on getting better. We can tell him when it's over. Little did they know, Jungkook actually saw them leaving the hospital,
Oh,
which is why
Jesus Christ. I knew it. These things, guys, this is what you learn from it. Never keep secrets. Never keep things secret from your friends because if you lie to them, they might not figure it out. But if they figure it out, you will do extreme damage.
Jimin. And Jimin lied to him by saying he was on his way home from Hangwon.
No,
Now,
no,
while all
no,
this is
no.
happening and the other boys are looking for the map of the soul, Jungkook had been going over the scenes of the car accident that night. Police had shown him the surveillance camera of the accident. He realized it was Seokjin's car.
What?
But Jungkook lied and said he doesn't
Is it his
remember
father?
anything. At one point, he even asked Hosok about Seokjin, but Hosok looked flustered. And this made Jungkook think that Hosok knew something about Seokjin being involved.
Man, this
in
is
the
so
car
freaking
accident.
complicated.
But it was actually because they were trying to keep him out of the loop with the whole map of the soul. So he
Ah.
could recover, so it
Right,
wasn't
but
because
he
of
feels betrayed.
them knowing about the car accident, you know.
Right.
So over time, Jungkook began to believe the boys knew about this accident, but were hiding it from him.
So he
Now that
basically
the city
believed they were
knew
trying to
about
kill
the
him.
redevelopment,
Okay.
The plan for it sped up. Namjoon's boss at the gas station talked about one of Seokjin's father's high school friends who went missing and was never found.
Is that the guy from the
Jimin found a
hospital?
blog uploaded 10 years ago titled The Missing Student from Songju Jail High School. Was Principal Jo Jin-myung involved? No comment was his answer. Taehyung
No
also
comment
asked his
usually means
uncle
yes.
about Seokjin's father, since they were about the same age. He found out that Seokjin's father, Kim Chang-jun, went crazy when his friend went missing. One day, Changjun was found collapsed in the music room in the annex, and that was it. He stopped looking for his missing friend. Changjun completely changed after that and had no feelings. Taehyung asked, "Which one is the annex building?" The uncle mentioned that back in the old day, they also used the small building on the left-hand side of the gate. The music room was inside the one-story building. This was the same room the boys made into their secret hideout.
Ah, yes, I read that in the notes. Somehow Jin discovered that his dad had like a similar fate than him and was also like traveling back in time, or he also made a mistake or something. Oh man, this is so difficult to keep up with. Like my whole brain power is kind of being used here.
Taehyung messaged his new findings in the group chat saying, "And you know our classroom? It used to be a music room 30 years ago, and something must have happened to Seokjin's father in that room." Jimin told the group chat about the principal, Jo Jin-myung. He thinks he was involved in the case of the missing student, and that he went to school the same time as Seokjin's father. Namjoon went to the Songji City Library to find old newspapers. The missing student's name was Choi Gyu-ho.
What?
The article
What?
had an interview with his mother. It said that he left home saying he was going to see a friend. She asked him which friend and why so late, and he said he had to see his friend at school. He definitely looked scared and she didn't know why she didn't stop him.
Okay, am I completely like going off my rockers right now, or is that person that Jimin saw, the child that was kidnapped, wasn't that his name also Choi? Was that the same person? But that means the timelines are completely mixed up and future and past and present are kind of like mixed.
Below the article was the missing student's picture, name and description of what he was wearing. He was a senior in Songju Jae-il High School. They began searching the classroom and Jimin pointed on the scribbles. Among so many scribbles were several names. They read Kim Changjun. Jimin pointed to another name, Woo Hyun-sung, the guy at the psychiatric ward. I can't recognize the other names. Yoongi pointed to another name, Choi Gyu-ho, the guy who went missing, right?
Right.
Namjoon read a sentence below the names. Everything started from here.
Ooh!
So Kim Chung-jun
What is this? The
Seokjin's
origin?
father, Woo Hyun-sung is the guy at the psychiatric ward. Choi Gyu-ho is the friend that went missing. Now, they didn't mention or point out the name Jo Jin-myung, who was the principal, but they mentioned that he also went to the same school and that he might have been involved in the case because of the past article. So I don't know if the principal used to be part of that friends thing who also went to the music room, but something happened and he was probably involved. July 24, year 22. 2 weeks ago, they decided to throw Jungkook a party to celebrate him being discharged from the hospital, but they completely forgot about it. So many things
They
happened
forgot about
since
it.
then, and they all ended up
Oh
showing
man,
up
that's
late.
probably
Hoseok
the
was the last
worst
to make it
thing that
since
could
he
have
had been
happened.
protesting and fighting in front of the city hall in order to stop the redevelopment. As soon as he arrived to the party, he went straight for Seokjin and asked him to take Youngji Children's Home out of the redevelopment plan. Seokjin listened without moving a muscle and said, "It's grown-up business."
Whoa! What? Why? Why did he change? Oh, is it because he forgets why he's actually doing this?
Growled and rubbed his temples. He pushed his hand against the wall and stood up. So from the scene, you know he's getting his major headache again. Then he says, "Until when do I have to look after you guys? Can you please learn to do things by yourself?" And Seokjin banged open the door and left. Jungkook watched Seokjin get into his truck and back away. He saw the scratch on his bumper and strangely didn't feel anything. Everything became abundantly clear. So at this point, Seokjin is so frustrated, he's fed up, he's lost himself, he doesn't remember why he's even doing all of this in the first place.
So
Seokjin
someone has to
thought
come
that
in
it was
now,
a
right?
waste
Is it
of time to
Jungkook?
attend Jungkook's party instead of going to another redevelopment meeting. He went there in the first place thinking that they were going to talk about the map of the soul, but instead, Hoseok begged him to save the orphanage. We know that Seokjin is going through it and he's no longer himself. At
Yeah,
this point,
really not.
He was no longer trying to save the boys for their sake. He just wanted to find the map of the soul to end the constant loop and basically save himself. But we know he was going through it, so you can't blame Seokjin. August 2, year 22. Seokjin came back to a note on his desk saying, "A draft of your father's memoir. You're in it too, so some feedback would be appreciated." The note was from Uncle Junho, which was his father's right-hand man. It was his first time being asked to read it in this loop. It might have been a butterfly effect from having gone to Jungkook's party instead of the meeting. The wind from the window.
What loop though? What loop is he still in? He's not going back to April 11th. So what loop is he in? Is he still in that loop that's trying to save Namjoon from the fire, and also the loop where he keeps on meeting with the girl and the girl's like distancing herself from him? Is that the loop still?
Ended up blowing the papers on the floor. As he began to pick it up, his eyes landed on something interesting. 10 pages were missing, and he flipped to the table of contents, and there he saw the map
of the soul.
Although he was
Seriously?
disappointed because the chapter that was titled Map of the Soul had nothing in it about what the title meant. But he saw the passage. When I thought about my high school days, I realized the map I've been looking for wasn't a real map with roads or dead ends, directions, and scales. It was just another name for the life I have lived, the countless hours I have lived since then, and the choices I have made. It'd be the trajectory of all my failures, success, mistakes, and blunders. But I failed to find the map. In retrospect, I realized that I landed on the right path because of my failures. So
That's interesting, because that's what I said in the Epiphany video. If Map of the Soul is actually a physical thing, or if it is something that is more of a metaphor, which is Map of the Soul, I guess. Find the road that your soul leads you to. That is like, you can't live a life without mistakes. You can't live a life without failures.
Then remembered what Taehyung had told him. You have lost your memories. Seokjin ran back into his room and pulled out a box from under the desk and found a couple of photo books and envelopes with Polaroid pictures. He began to look through the pictures and asked himself, did this really happen? When he tried to remember, the headache came back. He stood up and looked at the pile of pictures.
I wondered what that
gritted his
was.
teeth and tried to
Oh, he's
focus.
remembering there.
Fighting against the pain, he tried to remember. Only when he was able to overcome the pain, he will be able to find the trajectory of his life and arrive at the map of the soul. Seokjin texted Taehyung the pictures and asked, did this really happen? Taehyung then texted the group asking, where is everyone? He wanted to gather everyone to help Seokjin remember. August 3, year 22. They brought Seokjin to the storage classroom to help bring back his memories, but he struggled with headaches. Out of frustration and just hurting from this headache, he tried to leave, but Taehyung stopped him. They broke out into a fight and knocked over a wall, revealing a cabinet. Inside the cabinet was a diary. This diary
from his
belonged
father.
to Seokjin's father.
Yes.
According to the diary, his father had gone through what was happening to him.
Exactly.
Like him, he made mistakes and blundered, and he tried to undo them over and over again, but he failed.
What the hell, man? Like, why is Seokjin's father such a horrible person then? What happened to him? Why didn't he tell his son?
Diary was a record.
I guess
of his
because he
failures.
didn't know that he was going
After
through it
making
too.
the deal to save his friends, he was in a time loop. He tried to find the map of the soul, but failed and gave up. He forgot about it and went into denial and betrayed his friends. Seokjin looked up at the wall and remembered seeing his father's name around there, and below it said everything started from here. Perhaps it was inevitable that they'd return to this place. Seokjin came back home and the pictures were still strewn on the floor. He still had a throbbing headache, but he knew that pain was the evidence that he was trying to remember what was important to him. Suddenly, people in the pictures seemed to be moving. All of the moments in the pictures were lifted up in the air and were replaying like videos. The whole room shone bright with whirling memories that were sad, wistful, heartbreaking, and joyous. He then realized something was exuding light from his pocket. He took it out. It was a Polaroid picture with clear crumpled lines. He remembered the moment they took the picture.
Where's that from?
This was the first look ever for the six of them to be in the picture without him. Before then, he would use a timer. He looked down at the picture in his hand and the scene started to change slowly. There was Seokjin, standing next to his friends in front of the car by the beach. He suddenly remembered the cat and the contract they made. There will be a price to pay. He realized what kind of horrible contract he signed up for. Do you think he could straighten out the errors and mistakes and save all of you? He was finally able to answer the question.
No.
The question itself was wrong. He didn't have to save them. He didn't have to straighten out all of the errors and mistakes either. What he had to do was accept all of his errors and mistakes as part of him. The one and only person he couldn't save was himself, and he had to forgive, accept, and love himself. That was the only answer. He then realized all the pain had come to an end. August 7, year 22.
It's a self-love journey. It's a journey to yourself, finding yourself and accepting yourself. I understand that. But at the same time, it's like, but he still does have to save the other people because they are going to die otherwise. Like, you don't want your friends to die, right? So there's still that.
Seokjin went into the den and gave his father the diary. His father took the diary and flipped through the pages. Instantly, his face became distorted. A look of pain was on his face now. Seokjin asked his father about the redevelopment plan and to think about it one more time. His father said, "No, it has nothing to do with me now." August 10, year 22. Seokjin had gone through the documents found in the safe inside the inner room. Papers guaranteeing kickbacks from the construction company, slush funds, shabby construction, and profiteering, contract ad libitum, dual contracts, and also papers fabricated to conceal all these illegal dealings. His father had gotten to a place of no return. Seokjin took out his phone and called the reporter who had disclosed the first document concerning the redevelopment plan. Now he had to do what he had to do. Seokjin texted the boys to meet at Namjoon's container.
So
August
he's
11,
making it right
22.
for them.
They all arrived at the container and sat around the sofa. Seokjin started telling them about what happened back in high school. Seokjin apologized to Yoongi for getting him expelled. Then he began to tell everyone the whole story. Finding out the future misfortunes of everyone after he came back from America, the cat that he met at the beach, the
cat though, the cat,
and the things he had experienced over
There's
and
a
over
cat
again since then. The map of the soul, the price to pay, losing his memories. They had no idea whether the sandstorm began while Seokjin was talking or not. As Seokjin continued with the story, the wind became stronger. Everyone ended up closing their eyes, shedding tears from the prickly rain of sand. They couldn't see with their eyes, but they could feel it. As if they experienced it themselves, something flashing as time began to go back, the sound of a window being shattered. In the sandstorm, they finally understood what happened to Seokjin. No one spoke. The sandstorm disappeared without a trace, and the moon hung in the night sky. Soon after Seokjin started telling them his story, all the others looked as if they totally understood what he was saying, except for Jungkook. He thought Seokjin was going to mention the car accident, but didn't.
Oh,
It
man.
remains a mystery until now. Jungkook believes Seokjin was the one who hit him, but Seokjin doesn't remember any of this. During the night of the accident, Seokjin had a major headache and had closed his eyes while he was driving. He then opened his eyes to a loud honking noise and saw headlights in front of him. As a reflex, he turned the wheel and skid against the asphalt. He stepped on the brake and the car crashed into the opposite guardrail and finally stopped. He opened the door and stepped out. The road was empty of cars. The car that was flashing its light was also gone. So we don't know the full story yet. Jungkook believes Seokjin is the one who hit him. But on Seokjin's side, he was probably going crazy. He thought he saw a car, but there was no car. Maybe the dent in front of his truck that Jungkook saw was actually a mark from the guardrail he hit and not him hitting a person. But when Jungkook saw the surveillance camera, he saw Seokjin's car. So I don't know. There's something missing. There's something else going on with that.
There's totally something missing, because why put that in there? Why put that in there if it's not going to be significant, you know? So I wonder if they're going to solve this.
But we'll eventually find out. August 20, year 22. They put a stop to the redevelopment plan and arrested the people involved in the corruption. His father was not an exception. Uncle Junho, which was the right-hand man, had disappeared right after news of his involvement went out. August 22,
As
year
it happens.
22. A drunk man harassed Namjoon when he came home from work. "Everything is ruined because of you," he said. "You talked
What?
Seokjin into this, didn't you? You ruined everything." The drunk man kept babbling about things, but Namjoon couldn't understand. August 25, year 22.
This is
Seokjin
so
went to Namjoon's container
confusing.
home and found Uncle Junho with a gasoline canister at his feet. A fire erupted from the container.
No!
After Namjoon arrived and ran towards the burning container, he jumped over the flames and threw himself against the container door. The little kid, Woo Chang, was still inside. He had been taking care of this kid for a couple of months now, and so this kid was stuck inside a burning container.
Where does this kid come from? What? 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 Why is he taking care of a child?
Were about to escape through the door, construction materials ended up falling and blocking their way out. Namjoon turned and saw Seokjin through the window. They were able to pull open the window to rescue the kid and Namjoon. August 30, year 22.
So that's the time loop that Jin was kind of trying to save him, right? No, but that can't be it, because the construction stopped.
The boys were finally
This is so
gathered once
confusing.
again for the annual firework festival. They watched the fireworks light up the sky and fall limply down back to the stream. Everyone seemed to be enjoying the show except for Jungkook, who was looking down at his phone and playing a shooting game. "Jungkook, come and see me at the workroom after school. Let's talk," Yoongi said. "If I get time," Jungkook spat out in response and started a new game. So at this point, Jungkook is just out of it. He feels like the boys are lying to him. He is so sure that Seokjin is lying to him as well, and it was the one who hit him with the truck. So
No one's
it's
talking
not
though.
looking good. There's this like burning, growing rage and anger inside of him that will be an issue. September 27th.
That was yes, you guys said that, like that thing where he looked back and thought he was like, that was probably Jin in the car.
Year 22. At today's court first hearing, Seokjin's father admitted to all charges and gave up his right to defend himself. As he was walking out of the courtroom, he turned and looked at Seokjin. He looked peaceful and calm, a look that Seokjin had never seen before. And for a fleeting moment, there was a sense of lightheartedness in his expression. Seokjin was seeing that expression for the first time, but he knew that was his father's true face. He came
Aww.
home and ran to the inner room. His father's diary from high school was on the desk. He had written, "I found the map of the soul. Everything ends here and now." that was basically the end of the Notes 2 book. We did get an odd entry, but with no date. This was the last entry in the Notes book. The odd thing about this is that it's when Jungkook got into a car accident, which is supposed to be on May 22, year 22, and it's almost like the same entry, but this time the dates is all X's and
Okay.
yeah. Now, during the time of the accident, Jungkook heard a voice say,
Yes,
living is going to be more painful than death, but do you still want to live?
See, that's what I read in that note as well. I was like, I thought maybe that was Jin that was asking it, but it's the damn cat. Are you serious?
It was the cat with blue and green eyes, the same cat that made the deal with Seokjin. But unlike the first note that we got with the date, this one mentioned that Jungkook remembered hearing this from somewhere. So this wasn't the first time, and this has happened more than once. But that's all we've gotten so far, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this updated BTS storyline summary.
That was a wild ride. You didn't promise too much, xCeleste. What a video. Like, you put so much dedication. She put so much dedication into this and like mapped it all out. Like, I had trouble understanding, sitting there thinking like, wait, I can't follow along. Like, my brain feels actually tired now. I do think it's really like such a cool story and concept that they thought of, and there's like so much investment and energy in it, but I hope that they continue it in a way that feels like it'll pay off, you know, because obviously it isn't closed yet, it's not over. And with everything that's really kind of like intricate and complicated, I love these kind of things. For example, also I mentioned it before, but Dark, the season on Netflix, was really tricky to understand and you had to like really follow it along. But I love that as long as they know where they're going, as long as it pays off in the end. So I really hope that they know where they're going with this story. So I wonder what, you know, what's going to happen, because obviously Jin still hasn't, I mean, he has found the map of the soul, right? Because he realized that he has to love himself. And then it seems like his dad realized that too. And he has to accept himself as he is. But that's not the end of the story. It's not the end, because then we have this whole chapter with Jungkook opening up and the cat, the freaking cat. Anyway, I need a break now because I need to digest this. Do you have any other theories? Do you like understand everything? Where do you think this is going? Like, I'd be interested to know your opinion. This has gotten to be a very, very long reaction, with me trying to follow along. So I was trying not to talk too much over it because I need to like actually take it in and understand. Otherwise it's kind of like I want to give it the energy of the day, you know, I want to give it my energy and my attention, because otherwise I might as well not do it. So yeah, I feel like I know a lot more now, especially with the timelines and how everything happened and their personal backstories and how they're connected, like the couples, the teams. It's also a story of growing up, but also of friendship. I guess it's like valuing that friendship and the friends that you have without losing yourself and without like forgetting that you're still responsible for yourself and that you have to love yourself as well, kind of like that. Plus a lot of fantasy elements, obviously, with the cat, the time travel, time loop, and then the older generation being in there with his father and everything. Woo, it has a lot of complexity, that's for sure. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this reaction. I know some of you have been waiting for it for a long time, so I'm hoping it paid off for you as much as it paid off for me. And I will see you in the next video.